Alright everybody, thanks for stopping by. Uh, please like and subscribe, and let's get at it. So Bitcoin today, uneventful, pushed down, pushed back up, kind of milled around a little bit, but nothing really happened with it. After hours, still nothing really going on. Couldn't break this 8 and 9 SMA, and got the 20 rolling over. So Bitcoin can't get up above that. 97,500. I suspect we're going to continue to retest this low here of 91. If that breaks, then we're going down to maybe close this window open. That's open down here at around 78,000. Alright, and that's Bitcoin futures. And then we got the Bitcoin USD, and as you can see here, nothing happens in the after hours on USD with Thinkorswim anyway. But yeah, put in that little doji looking thing. If we open up below that, expect it to go lower and tomorrow. But we got overhead resistance with the 20. We got this overhead resistance of 98,500, and we got our 8 and 9 SMA rolling over to added resistance. Next up, we got oil. Oil did this thing. It's pushed up, but it put in a little bit of a pullback. So let's see if we pop off and go a little bit higher on oil. We got our moving averages that are still lagging behind, so it can push up and retest this area here at $79. And if we can get above that, another retest at 83, and then maybe we'll get a little pullback and retest at 79 again and continue higher. Next up is gold, and gold sold off. I wasn't expecting it to do that. I thought it was going to continue to go higher and retest this up here, but it didn't. It pulled back on us. Found some support at the 8 and 9 SMA, but we don't know what's going to happen with gold until tomorrow. Maybe we'll open up, pull back a little bit, and then go higher, or maybe we're going to sell off. We'll see what happens with gold, but currently it looks like it wants to continue to go higher, but it just didn't have, today was just one of those weird days in the market where nothing was really doing what it's supposed to do. Next up, natural gas. Got a little pullback in natural gas. We got our 8 and 9 SMA coming up. We got our 20-day coming up. So look for some support here in this area at around, I'd say around $3.62 on natural gas. Next up is the NASDAQ. NASDAQ found some support at around 20,983. Pushed through it for a little bit, but then it came back to close up above it. So we'll see what happens with the NASDAQ on tomorrow. It's got a little bit of bar coming in, and in the after hours, but we'll see if that's still there come morning. Alright, we got our 8 and 9 SMA rolling over, we got our 20-day rolling over, and this thing so far has been respecting both of them. So keep an eye out for the NASDAQ and to continue to sell. Next up is silver, and silver did a nice big pullback on silver, but it got caught by its moving averages. So suspect these moving averages to maintain support. If they don't maintain support, then we got this $29 area here for some support for the silver. If this doesn't hold, then look out below on silver. Next up is the Dow, and the Dow had a little sell off, and then it pushed back up. Now it's got this little bar, sort of like the gold bar that we saw back there. This little bit of thing that's happening in the after hours. If it can't push up through here and close above this 43,392 area, then expect the Dow to continue to sell off and come back down in here and retest this support at 41,682 and get into our trade winds. We get caught in our trade winds when we have to wait and see what happens with that, if it's going to force it back up or if we're going to head down into a down market. But currently it's still in an up market, so keep an eye out for that on the Dow. Next up is corn, and corn, did its thing on Friday, and then today I put in a nice little bar. Kind of got through this resistance area, and now it's trying to kind of cooling down a little bit, trying to figure out where this next move is going to be. I suspect it's going to have a little bit of a pullback and then maybe go higher, because this was a resistance area in the past and it's a resistance area still. Alright, so we'll have to see what happens with corn. And that's the corn futures. /Z Zebra Charlie. Next up, Apple. And Apple was selling off, and then it kind of closed above this 233 area where I thought I would find some support in that area, and it actually did. So kind of see what's happening with that tomorrow, if we're going to stay in this area for some support and go back and retest, or if we're going to fail at this area and sell off and head into our trade winds and maybe find some support down here at around $221, excuse me, down around $221, maybe find some support in that area and go back and retest. If that doesn't happen, then 214 is the next stop. Next up is Affirm, and Affirm continuing to sell off. Got a nice little green bar, but I have a feeling that's going to get taken out tomorrow, and we'll see if we find some support here at $50. We got this nice green bar here in the past, and we didn't come back and close below it, and this time we actually didn't either. If you look here. Okay, so we'll have to see what happens with that. Maybe this is still a good support area on Affirm. Alright, so look out for that one tomorrow and the next day. Next up is AMD, Advanced Micro Devices, and it found some support in this area of $116, and it went down as low as 114, so it popped up a little bit. We have to see what happens tomorrow on that one also. Is it going to open up lower or open up higher? And currently it's going to open up at about 118 according to the after hours chart. So that's going to be opening up here somewhere higher. Alright, so let's see what happens with AMD come morning. We're currently at about it is about 118 currently in the after hours. Alright, next up is Amazon, and Amazon is doing what I thought it was going to do, is selling off. Put in this little doji here. If we open up below that, and we're probably going to continue to sell off and head down here to this 200 area. Currently in the after hours is at 219, so 219 have put it up here somewhere. But that's not really enough to get us above our moving averages, and our moving averages so far has been respecting those. So we'll see what happens with Amazon tomorrow and the next day. Next up is ARK, ARK Innovation Trust, and it, of course, it's been selling off because Bitcoin has been selling off. So you can kind of expect that with ARK. It's going to do what Bitcoin is doing pretty much. Well, not just what Bitcoin is doing, but you know what I'm saying. She's heavily into Bitcoin. Anyhow, nice little green hammer. Expect a little bit of a push up to about 58 maybe, and then watch out with our moving averages if they're going to force it down again into a sell-off and come back down into this area at 54 for a retest of support. If that doesn't hold, then we got our next retest of support at 49. Alright, next up is AWK, the American Water Works, and it's sold off today, and it put in a little hammer, pushed down and pushed back up, but we know that's a resistance area here at 122, so we'll see if we can get some pop up on that. In the after hours it hit 123.11, which puts us up here somewhere, so we'll see what happens come morning, because what happens in the after hours stays in the after hours. Alright, next up is BITI, and it had a pullback today, and it looks like in the after hours they got a little more of a sell-off too. It came down to about $23.30. So let's see, about down here somewhere. So it's back. It is still within their moving averages, so it's still not out of the realm of possibilities of going back up. This is the short of Bitcoin, BITI. So it's a Bitcoin short ETF. So when Bitcoin is going down, this should be going up. Right? Currently, Bitcoin is going up, so this is going down. All right. Next up is BOIL, BOIL, and that's natural gas. Bloomberg ProShares Ultra Bloomberg Natural Gas ETF, and it's got a doji in right now. After hours, of course, it's popped up and then it sold off. So we'll have to see what happens with that one. It's acting a little goofy in the after hours. So we'll see how it opens up in the morning. If it opens up above this doji, then we're going to go higher. If it opens up below it, then suspect that we're going to try to push through these moving averages and go lower. But these may hold on and keep it in place and then eventually push it back up. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with that one on BOIL. Next up, Comcast, and it's put in a doji also. After hours, it's gonna open up around 36.53, but we'll have to see come morning if it's gonna be continue to open up and go higher, or if it's gonna fake us out in the after hours and then take a dump in the morning. All right, so it might be up and then it might just sell off on us tomorrow. So we have to wait and see what happens with that one. But so far, as you can see, it's been respecting the moving averages. So be careful with that one. Next up is Chipotle Mexican Grill, and I put in this hammer down here. It didn't break its low over here of 55.02, so it's still not doing so bad, but it is below its moving averages, the 200 and the 150. So it's definitely it's almost in a down market, but I don't want to call it that just yet because they're still kind of flat. If they roll over and start to head down, then we know we're heading down to a down market. After hours in the charting hit about 57.70, so that put it back up here somewhere. All right, so we have to see how that opens up. But if we open up here, we need to close that window, so it's gonna pull back before continuing going higher. So be careful with the Chipotle. Next up is corn. Corn did its thing. Pushed up, nice green bar, put in another green bar today, and we'll have to see what happens tomorrow. Alright, if it's going to pull back and retest this support area before continuing higher, if it's just going to keep running higher. And we know when we looked at corn on the futures chart, we had a little pullback coming in, so be careful with corn. Don't think it's just going to run. Wait till morning and see how it looks when it opens up. Alright, next up is Corsair Gaming. And Corsair Gaming has stayed in this little channel with green bars in here, so it still trying to hang in here, consolidating. So keep an eye on that one. If we open up higher, which after hours, it didn't do anything in the after hours. It closed about 746 is where it closed, so that's about this bar here. So if we can open up and then push higher and retest this area at $8, man, we need to get above that $8, get above these moving averages, and so we can continue on higher. But be careful with this one when we get up here, because that's been a resistance area, as you can see back here in the past. Okay, so it's going to need to get some consolidation in here and then go higher. Next up is Drip, and Drip is the Bear Oil and Gas, and as you can see, it tried to find some support here at $9.22. And the after hour is going to open up around 9:54 possibly, but we'll have to see when we get closer to the morning. See where it opens up. But after hours right now, it's at about 9:54. So that put it about the middle of this bar somewhere, this red bar here. Alright, so that's oil and gas bear ETF. Next up is the dust. Dust is a bear ETF. Bear. Next up is dust bear ETF, and it got a little pop up, but it's still running into some trouble here in the trade winds, and it got the 8 and the 9 SMA acting as resistance along with the 20, the 200, and the 200 exponential. So and it looks like in the after hours it started to sell off a little bit, so be careful with dust. We may get another pullback on that one and sell off with the bear. So gold was looking kind of bullish, so we'll see what happens on gold. Next up, EXE, Expand Energy. And Expand Energy kind of consolidated around in this area for a little bit before popping back up. And but it did put in this big red bar that kind of wiped out that one. And so we don't know if we're going to continue to find some support at 101 before going even higher, or if we're going to sell off of it. I suspect it's going to try to hang around in this area and go higher on Expand Energy, because oil is looking pretty strong right now. Wait, is oil looking pretty strong right now? Yeah, oil is looking pretty strong right now. Alright, next up is Fastly. And Fastly is doing some weird stuff in the after hours. It's popping up and down and jumping around. So keep an eye on that one in the morning when it opens up. Put in this doji, so if it opens up higher, we're going to retest these moving averages. And if we can get enough to get through them, then we're going to go back and retest this $12 area. If not, we got some support coming in of the 200 and the 150, so it may meal around in here before either breaking down or before taking off. So keep an eye on Fastly. It has this window that opened up that it almost is closed, and so it's got a little bit more below to go, about 850 or so. So if we can get down there, close that window, we could probably take off and continue to go on higher like it was doing, or like it was trying to do in the past. Next up is GBTC, Grayscale Bitcoin, and you can see it sold off a little bit, and now it put in a nice green bar pushing higher. In the after hours is pushing up at about 75.71, so it's getting up to this line here at about $76. So we have to see where it opens up. We got our 8 and 9 moving average and our 20 rolling over, and we know here in the past that it respected that. So if this rolls over and starts to force it down, then look out, Grayscale is going to continue to sell off. Next up is GME, and GME is getting hammered in the after hours, beating the heck out of it. But it did put in a nice pointer up to about $31.90. But in the after hours, it's down as low as $30.97. So they're beating the heck out of it in the after hours. So we have to see what happens with that one. If it's going to find some support here at this $30.46 area, we shall see. On that, let me get rid of that. We're not messing around with that. So yeah, we'll see what happens with GameStop come morning. If it pushes through this $30.46 area, and or if it finds some support and go back up and retest. All right, next up is gold, GOLD. And we got the pullback, just like we got in the major pullback. So look for some support around $15, and then we'll see what happens with the big boy, and we'll see what the little boy is doing. All right, next up is Google, and Google's got the overhead resistance of 191 and the moving averages that are rolling over. So we have to see what happens come tomorrow. See if it pushes it on down and continues to sell. You got the after hours right now about 192.34, so it's up here somewhere. So we have to see how it opens up and what it continues to do. Maybe it's going to continue to go back up here and retest this area up here and see if it's still wants to sell off. All right. Next up is Gush, and that's the Bull Gas, S&B Bull Oil and Gas. And it, doing what oil and gas doing, pushing up, got a little bit of pullback right now, so we have to see what it does tomorrow. If it continues to push higher, if it's going to meddle around in here, if it's going to sit around in here and consolidate before trying to go higher. But currently, it's just in these trade winds trying to figure out what it's going to do, if it's got enough to continue higher. Next up is JDST, which is the bear ETF for junior gold miners. And it had a little pop up here for a minute, but we know gold is trying to sell off, so this should continue higher if gold does continue to go down lower, because this is our bear, so this is our inverse of gold. So this should go higher if gold continues to sell lower. Alright, next up is JILL, JGIL. And wow, I put down a nice little red bar. That was red. It's probably pretty scary to somebody. And then it pushed back up and closed up here. But it's still starting to roll over with our moving averages. We have to see what happens tomorrow when this opens up. If it opens up lower, then it's probably going to continue to force down lower, and our moving averages are probably going to roll over and help force it down lower. Well, we have to see what happens comes the next few days on JILL. Then we got JNUG, which is the Junior Gold Miners Bull ETF, and it was starting to pull back and sell off, but we got a little bit of a reprieve here on this one. And looks like in the after hours it's trying to go higher at about 38.87. So we'll have to see what happens with that one tomorrow. But right now it looks like it wants to sell off. JNUG, Gold Miner Bull, right? And I already said that gold was looking like it was going to try to maybe either pull back or push higher on this one. And in the after hours right now it looks like it's a sell. All right. So we got JNUG, and next up is LABD, which is Direction Daily S&P Biotech Bear ETF, and the bear got beat down by the bull, and so we have to wait and see what happens tomorrow. If it's going to continue to sell off, and the bull is going to continue to go higher, or if this one's just going to find some support here and keep pushing, and the bull is going to sell off. So this is LABU, which is the bull biotech S&P, and that's the opposite of what we were just looking at. And you can see it put in a nice, it was a red bar, and it pushed back up and turned green. Now it's a nice looking hammer, but it's at this support area. That doesn't really mean diddly, really, to be honest with you, because you got our moving averages that are rolling over to force it down, along with our 20-day. And if these start to roll over, then we know we're going to stay in this bear market and continue going lower, which means that the LABD is going to continue to go higher. Alright, next up is Lake, L-A-K-E, Lakeland Industries, and didn't really get much of a sell-off. Stayed about 50% of this bar here. So if we can open up and continue higher, we're going to go back and retest this $29.55 area. Alright, that's Lake, L-A-K-E. Next up, Microsoft. Microsoft sold off, tried to push back up, but our trade win, our 200 exponential, moving exponential, stopped it in its tracks. But these are all flat, so we may have enough to push through these moving averages because they're flattening out. Okay, but right now currently it's looking like a sell on Microsoft, so keep an eye on that. But oh, wait a minute, after hours it pushed all the way up to $419.10, which would put it well, just above the top of there. It looked like a lot on here, but Looking at this chart here, it's like, okay, nowhere above this one, or just barely above this one. So we'll have to see what happens tomorrow when the market opens. All right, next up, MSTR, MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy got a little reprieve today, got a little green bar in here, but it couldn't break the moving average here. So it's still got that resistance for the 8 and 9, and then it's got the 20 coming over to act as resistance as well. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with that tomorrow also, because we may be rolling over and selling off tomorrow in the Bitcoins. Next up is Netflix. Netflix has been selling off. Got this little green bar, but I suspect that's going to get taken out and it's going to continue to sell off. We've got this window open down here and we need to close at $711. But we'll see what happens with that, because right now in the after hours we're at 845, which puts us up here above this one, barely above this. So it could open up and take that out real quick. And that's kind of what you want, because you don't want any gaps anyway. So if it opens up here and sells off, that's perfect. That's a perfect sell-off. Alright, next up is NVIDIA. Same thing with NVIDIA. Find some support at 128. If it doesn't hold, then we got our moving averages coming up to help support. If they don't hold, then we got 118 to help. If that doesn't hold, then we'll look out. We're going to need to come down in here and reconcile this open window. Alright, if that window is still open. Alright, but at any rate, it needs to, it's still in an up market, but it needs to stay up. If it gets into these trade winds and starts to consolidate and then fall off, then we know we're going lower. Alright, next up is OSS, One Stop Systems, and it continues to sell off, put in this doji. If it opens up lower, maybe look for some support in this area. If it doesn't hold, then we got our trade winds down here to catch us in this $2.41 area. Next up is Oxy, and Oxy didn't do too bad. It put in a nice green bar, and it was bigger than this bar, so maybe we're going to continue going higher in Oxy. We'll have to wait and see what happens tomorrow and the next day. But it does have this overhead resistance coming. Next up is Qualcomm. And Qualcomm has been, I don't know, it's just been doing its thing, bouncing around down in this area, finding some consolidation, and around this 152 area. Put in a decent green bar today, so we'll have to see what happens with that tomorrow. If it opens up and continues to go higher, or if it consolidates more and before trying to go higher. But currently it's going to open up around 158 in the morning, which just a little bit higher than this green bar here. So, but we'll have to see what happens, because this is after hours, and after hours is not official hours of trading. It's just something they show you that they. I'm not really sure if this is just hedge funds messing around, or if this is other countries that are awake and trading right now, or whatever. But I'm over here acting like you can see what I'm talking about, but you can't. Sorry. Anyway. Yeah, Qualcomm. We need to open up and go higher and retest this moving average here, which acted as resistance in the past. Next up is Rocket Lab, and Rocket Lab's consolidating in the after hours at around 24.57. They put in this red bar. It looks like it's a sell right now, or it's becoming a sell. We need to get this 8, 9 SMA to come down in here, heading down, and then get the 20 rolling over, and then we know we're actually selling off. But we're still in an uptrending market, so keep an eye on that one. They may want to come back, reconcile this window that it opened before going higher. That's Rocket Lab. Next up is the Russell, and the Russell put in a nice green bar today. It's got a trade winds acting as some support. So we'll have to see what happens tomorrow. If it opens up higher and wants to push higher, then we're going to go back and retest this 228 area. 2285 area. So 2,285. We'll have to see what happens. In the after hours, it's at about 2194. So it's not too far away. Wait a minute, 2194. So that's just below this one here. All right, just below that. So we want to get above that and retest this up here. Next up is RWM, which is the inverse of the Russell. It's the Bear ETF Russell, and as you, of course, it's selling off because we know we were just looking at the Russell and it was going up, right? So we got our sell-off in RWM, but it's in a better area currently than the actual Russell was, I think, because it's in a, if it's not for these moving averages catching it, it probably would be in a downtrending market, and the RWM would continue to be in an uptrending, but it needs to get through the moving averages also. So we're going to see who's got the might to get through the moving averages to survive the trade. Next up is SDOW. SDOW's got a pullback, but the Dow was still looking like it was hadn't made up its mind yet what it was doing, because it put in this little bar right here. So it may continue to sell off, and the SDOW may continue to go higher. Alright, so keep an eye on that one. And that little blue thing there is what? Dark cloud cover. So it's that red bar covered this green bar. They call it a dark cloud. It just casted a shadow over it. If the sun was shining down this way, it was casting a shadow over that green bar. Next up is SoFi, and SoFi ran into some trouble with this support area at $14, but in the after hours it pushed up through it and it came to about $14.32. But then it's got these moving averages coming over there acting as resistance, and also the 20. And as you can see, it's been respecting it. So we'll have to see what happens with SoFi tomorrow morning, if it's going to continue to go higher and test these moving averages, or if it's going to sell off and come back down in here and test the support area. Next up is Square. Square continues to sell off, put in a little green bar, but that may get taken out. We have to see. It may push up higher and come back and challenge these moving averages, but currently it looks like a sell, so we have to see what happens with that. And the after hours it hit 83.46, which is quite a bit, and put it way up here, so we're going to have a little bit of a gap up on it. So we're going to have a window open on it, so be careful with Square, because we may have to reconcile that window. Alright, next up, if it opens up there in the morning, we're going to have to see where it opens. And this is SRE, Semper Energy, and it continues to sell off, and now it's getting into a bear market. If these if the 150, the 200 exponential, and the 200 simple moving average roll over, and these continue to roll over, and then it's going to force it down, and we're going to be heading more into a bear market on Semper Energy, which I'm surprised that it's doing that, because energy is doing pretty decent right now. But maybe that's the sign that that's the telltale sign that maybe energy might not be where we want to be at the moment. We'll find out for sure in the next coming days. Next up is TMUS, T-Mobile US Inc., and it's consolidating in here around 209, so keep an eye on that. Got a moving averages coming in, and they're going flat, so we have to see what happens, if it's going to come in here and ricochet up, or if it's going to come in here and continue to sell off. And we have earnings coming up too on the 29th of January, so that'll be another catalyst for T-Mobile US. But yeah, it's an expensive stock at the moment, $209, but apparently it's worth it. Next up is TTEK Industrials, and nice green bar. Today's movement didn't affect it, looks like. It just kept doing this thing, push, push, push. So it's got to get through these moving averages, and it's got to get through this resistance area of $43. So let's see if it keeps pushing higher in the days to come. Next up is Texas Roadhouse, and Texas Roadhouse put in a nice green bar, found some support at around 174. Got the moving averages coming in underneath to help support. Got the 8 and the 9 SMA coming over as resistance, and the 20-day acting as resistance. So we'll see what happens with this one, if it's going to open up higher and continue higher, or if it's going to open up higher and go back down lower. So be careful with these. A lot of these you got to be careful with in the next coming days, because it looks like they're acting like they're going to go one direction and they go the opposite direction. So you got to be nimble, and you might want to hold off until, before you put your trade on. Don't just jump right in as soon as the market opens. Might want to wait and try to read them a little bit before putting your trade on. Or if you see a nice big bar pop up and you're trading, maybe you might want to be in that bar. So, but that's on you. You do you. Next up is VSTM, Veristem, and it's thinking. We'll have to see what happens with that. That might be it. Alright, we're not getting no Veristem, so we're going to end it with, what the heck is going on here? We're going to end it with Texas Roadhouse. Now my charts are now. I'll lose my damn internet. My dang internet. There we go. Now let's see, we got VSTM now. Yeah, there. Okay. Got a window open down here, so we may want to come down and reconcile this window at about $3.78. Continuing in its sell-off, but it's got the 200 SMA coming underneath as support. It's got the 200 moving exponential coming in underneath as support. It's got the 20-day coming underneath as support. So this thing's got a lot of support. So we have to see what happens for the next couple of days. But it does have this window it needs to reconcile. So that may not be enough support for it to keep it from doing what it needs to do to go higher. Alright, so that's all we got for now. Did you like? Did you subscribe? I don't know what you're waiting for. Why you hesitating? It don't cost you nothing. Just a click and a click and a click. And then we are joined at the hip forever. Alright. So that's all I got for now. I think we're going to continue to sell, but we'll have to wait and see what happens come the next few days. But yeah, be careful out there. These markets are crazy.